Hello. Welcome on in, everyone, to Saturday stream. I hope you're all having a wonderful day so far. I know I am. There we go. Okay, things are all good now. Welcome on in. How is everyone doing this fine Saturday morning? What's up? Today's gonna be a day. It's definitely gonna be a day of all time. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be talking about Daggerheart today. Oh shoot, I didn't put the pinned comment. Hold on one second. One of these days I will not have this much scuff when I start a stream, but today, look, today is just not that day, okay? Let's put the full stream link over there, shall we? Pin that message. There we go. Perfect. Cool. Well, welcome on in. This week has been an interesting week. I hope it's been good overall for most of you. What's up, Elazar? How you doing? Welcome on in. I have spent more time reading books than I have in quite a while. I didn't quite finish reading all of Daggerheart, like all the various rules and stuff, but I did read most of it, as well as a lot of the GM material, a lot of the player material, a lot of the a little bit of the campaign. Took a look at some of the cards and things like that, and overall I gotta say I got a pretty good impression of the game. There are definitely some things that I'm gonna bring up once we start, you know, going over it in detail, because I think that there is I don't even know how to describe it well. There's just a lot of stuff going on. Kazuna AI is live. Yeah, I saw that. And I was confused. I didn't know if, like, is there something going on? Was there an event planned? I don't remember hearing anything about any event. I checked in for a few seconds just to see what was going on, and it kind of looks like they just have a video on loop. Is it just like a 3 million celebration? Like, I don't know what's going on over there. It's interesting, I guess, but I don't know what's happening. So it is what it is, I guess. I'm sure I'll find out after stream if something actually occurred. But yeah. Let's see. Are there any announcements or things that I want to go over today? Not actually looking like it. Not for right now, at least. But should we just hop into it? Hey, are you the dude who had a tutorial on VadoTube? I was, yeah. It's on its own channel now, but I don't know if I was the dude. I was one of the dudes who did it. But that was a while ago. I was there for 20 minutes. I got bored and set a dip here. See, that was what I was doing, Subaru. I also had that same thought of, I didn't really see anything going on over there. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm sure I'll find out after stream if something actually did happen. But, you know, right now I'm fine. But should we just hop into things? I've got a lot to talk about with this system today. I just realized I should probably change the title of the stream. The Daggerheart TTRPG. There we go. That's the correct title. You know, I was actually really curious when I was deciding to do today's stream, just in general. I was really curious at how many people had even heard of this game, because I know Critical Role like was a really huge thing, and it probably still is, right? Like, it's probably still a big thing. What's up, 02? But I'm curious at how big its fan base is really going to be, you know? So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Let me. People point out all the previous video are privated, so there's only one premiere in the live stream. Oh, interesting. I wonder if Kazuna like got their account back or something. But whatever. We'll find out later. I'm not too worried about it right now. So from the few people that have already voted on the poll, I'm going to go ahead and guess that most of you have never even heard of Daggerheart outside of me mentioning it on stream before. And I'm not entirely surprised. It's still an open beta, so it's not like something a ton of people are going to be playing. They do seem to be updating the beta pretty frequently, and I know Critical Role is running, I don't know if it's a full campaign or just like a mini campaign of them using the system. I've been watching a little bit of that to try and get a little bit better feel for how the game is and what it's going to do and stuff like that. And so that was all part of my research for leading up to today. And I think you guys are going to find some interesting things about the system. Maybe you like it, maybe you won't. But you know, we'll find out together. Welcome on in to Nistan Murder. So I have to go. My school is having a mask ball. Nice. Well, have fun at the mask ball. But yeah, let's hop in, shall we? Let's see if I actually have everything set up for once. Whoop. No, I don't want that one. There we go. Ha! Photoshop. Okay. Let's do a little. Wait, why didn't that work on both? Okay, there we go. Thanks so much fun with the stream. Thank you. So I want to introduce you guys to the wonderful world of Daggerheart. Let me make sure I got everything lined up on both streams real quick. Yeah, looks like we kind of do. Yeah, okay, we're good. Okay, so we're gonna be talking about Daggerheart. Pros and cons. This is our usual setup. You guys know this by now. So again, the context here is I have not fully read everything because it's like 600 pages of stuff. But I have read through all of the base rules. I read through a lot of the character classes. I took copious amounts of notes for what I think or what I thought while I was reading things. And that was interesting. But I'm gonna talk to you guys a little bit about the system, and who knows, maybe you like it, maybe you won't. But in any case, it should be interesting. But let's swap up to a little bit more. Let's swap up the music just a little bit. Some Summer in the Sun. Nice and chill music. Love it. All right, so Daggerheart. What are some pros? What are some cons? What is going on here? You know, all that jazz. So Daggerheart is if I had to describe Daggerheart in a single sentence, it is a role play first system. Everything about the game is really trying to teach you how to role play. Like there's huge sections of the beta test that talk specifically about like group dynamics and session 0 and how the GM should work with the players to try and build a cool story and stuff like that. It's very very focused on the role play portion of the game, which, you know, is good. I think that's great. I think that's wonderful. It uses a 2d12 rolling system for the players. The GM, however, uses a d20 like normal, which is an interesting choice, but we'll get into that. There's a lot of fun races, or they call them ancestries in this game. Hey, what's up, Salem? How you doing? Yeah, there's a bunch of fun ancestries. There are not a whole lot of class options yet, but that's to be expected, you know, first edition and all that jazz. There are subclass options, but the big thing is it limits your ability to do stuff by having these things called domain cards, and you can only ever have 5 of them out at any given time, and they're kind of like your spells and your fancy little abilities, which is interesting. I think that's a decent choice. The number systems, it is very easy to understand. There's not a whole lot of math going on, which I think is in general plus. Oh, I should be writing these down. I would say it's pretty math light. Math light. So it's not very open sandbox where players can be freedom with their action. No, it is actually very open sandbox. In fact, it tends to lean into it more, that like it encourages you to use your skills and traits to do things, like to describe how you're doing things. It's very open-ended on that front, which is, it's good. This is role play focused. Role play focused. I will say it's pretty simple to understand. There's not a whole lot that you as a player need to keep track of, even if the steps for creating a character, of which there are 10 of them. Just looking at my notes real quick. They're pretty simple and easy steps to get through. Cons is for players of other systems. I can see this being an issue of not many choices. Now, keep in mind, this is still in beta, so this is an inherent problem with betas, is they have to limit all the abilities and things like that. They can't just come out of the gates with all the options. Like you can't compare a brand new RPG to the tons and tons and tons and tons of books that like Pathfinder has, for example, right? But what I am comparing it to in this instance is not actually the number of classes or splat material that's available. I'm talking about your actual abilities, because you only have 5 of them. You can use your traits and things to do stuff, but as far as like cool, unique abilities, you only have 5 of them. And if you want to swap them out for other cards in your deck, you're basically taking mental strain to do that, which is an interesting choice. It does make you really think about your decisions. But I can see why some people would not be super happy with that. Another thing it does, it has downtime actions. I really love when systems have this. So when you take downtime, either in a short rest or a long rest, you get to do downtime actions, which are anything from like healing yourself up a little bit to working on a project to relieving stress or doing all this other stuff. I like it when it's a little bit more, it's just defined enough that it gives you an idea of what you're doing in a short amount of time, and it's detailed enough that it's like an actual mechanic of the game. Like there's even portions where like you're working on projects, you are completely clearing, you know, any damage you have, you're repairing armor, which is kind of a big deal in this. So there's a lot of good aspects of the downtime scenario here. Cons, I'm going to put another con on here. DM is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. A lot of the stuff that goes on in Daggerheart seems to be dictated by the whims of the GM and their ability to improvise and come up with new and interesting situations for everyone. And the reason why I'm putting that as a con is because anything that scares away DMs from being a DM is, in my opinion, a negative, because there's never a shortage of players. Everyone always wants to play. There's always a shortage of DMs, and some of the stuff that I've read about in Daggerheart does not make me personally excited to run it. It actually sounds kind of tiring. But we'll get into specifics a little bit later, as we just kind of run through my notes in general. Let's see. What's up, Shade? How you doing? Let's see. What else? What other pros would I say are in this system? It teaches you how to play. Teaches you not only how to play, but like the culture of role-playing games. Like I said, there's a lot of sections in this book that are dedicated to like, hey, here's maybe how you can handle this situation. Here's how you can handle this situation. Remember, you're all here to do this, you know, which is, it's a nice touch. I don't remember this being a big part of a lot of other games, but granted, it's been a while since I've actually sat down and read the player handbook for like a lot of new RPGs. I'm okay, it's been a while. Hey, no problem. Just glad to have you around. But I do like that about Daggerheart. Let me see if I wrote down some other notes that I thought was cool. Oh, a huge pro. Huge pro. Simple character sheet. Okay, I know you guys probably can't read that because it's terrible and I'm writing with my mouse, but it having a simple character sheet is actually huge. You'll see an example of it when we get to it, but I'm a big, one of my biggest gripes with Pathfinder character sheets is they're like 3 pages and there's stuff on every page because it's all important information. It's super important information. And it's kind of frustrating because there's just so much going on. These, it's very simple. A lot of easy to digest information. Just at a glance, it's awesome. And I wish more sheets were like this. And not only that, but every class, there's a little printout that you can, this is genius. I want to show you guys this when we were going through the book. This is actually genius. There is a printout that it's a single page. You're supposed to fold it in half and tear it in half and then set it next to your character sheet. There's little arrows that point to every single section and explain what they are. So like it's a mini sheet designed to that you can like just have behind your actual character sheet. And when you need to know what something does, you just kind of like pull it out and look at it, and then you can put it back behind it. It's so good. It's actually that alone is like probably my favorite thing about the whole game that I've seen so far. It's actually so good. I'm so happy with that. Is there a difference between using your turn for an action and using downtime instead? So you can't do downtime during combat. Downtime is explicitly out of combat stuff. Actions though, actions work really weird. There's no initiative order. Here's a con. Fights can be confusing. Man, I really need to get another tablet so I can write stuff instead of draw it with my freaking mouse. Because there's no what's the right word? There's no initiative. It's the players go, and whenever they take a turn, the GM gets action tokens to do stuff. So like they can interrupt each other, and it's more of like a group. It's a weird experience from what I can tell. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about the whole thing, but again, we'll get into that in just a little bit. I'm gonna put this as a con just for right now. It is in beta. Stuff is not clear. There are some grammar and things that were a little confusing to figure out. So just keep that in mind if you want to play with it right now. It does have a pre-made campaign ready for you, which is awesome. So if you want to give it a shot, it already has a pre-written one. Pros, I will say, and this is on the DM side, this is a good pro. The enemy stat blocks are really simple. Anyone who's played high-level D&D or Pathfinder knows that monsters at high levels can get really out of hand. Like a dragon has like 2 pages of abilities just because it's got so much crap it can do. This is, again, it lends itself to more that simple, that more narrative style of gameplay. But yeah, that's kind of my first impressions of what Daggerheart is and what it does. I'm actually gonna, you know what, that's actually a better stream time. I'm gonna change the first impressions of Daggerheart, of the Daggerheart TTRPG. Cool. So that's my first impressions. Now we're gonna go through and we're gonna walk through a bunch of the book. You guys can see what I'm talking about. I will explain some of my notes as we go through because there's a lot of them. And I'm curious to see what all of your thoughts are in how, like, what you guys think about this. How easy from your perspective is it to build your own custom campaign? It looks relatively easy. There's not a whole lot of stuff that you really have to plan for, in my opinion. So it just, if there's one thing I can say Daggerheart is built for, it's to do generic fantasy. Like, if you have a general idea of a fantasy world, Daggerheart will probably fit into it. So let's take a look now at the actual system. So this is Daggerheart. There's not a whole lot of cool art because, again, you know, it's in beta. You know, yeah, we have to be a little bit. We can't have all the cool stuff right now. You know, we gotta make sure that we give it its fair shake. It is in beta, so it's gonna be just a lot of white text. But we're just gonna start from the top. I'm gonna read off some things as we go, and you guys will be able to make your own opinions and stuff like that. Did my chat break? My chat did break. Why did my chat break? Uh-oh. My chat broke. That's fine. All right, I'll just reconnect it. Okay. So here we go. Also, I just realized I still have League of Legends open. I couldn't figure out what that whispering sound was. It was really weird. Okay, here we go. So Daggerheart. Let's talk about its core mechanics. So the dice players in Daggerheart use 2d12, which are your duality dice. You need to make sure you know which one is which one. So like you need to be able to identify that one. This one is your hope dice and this one is your fear dice, because the main gimmick of Daggerheart is you roll 2d12 and whichever one of those dice is higher signifies part of the end result. So if you roll and your hope dice is higher, you get hope, which is a resource that you can spend to do stuff. If your fear die is higher, that gives the GM a resource to do bad stuff to you, which is interesting. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of this method of generating stuff all the time. The hope stuff I'm cool with. I think that's fine because it's kind of, well, it's not kind of, it is a massive part of the game. It's a core mechanic. You're going to be spending hope a lot. And since you're rolling the duality dice all the time, you're going to be getting a lot of hope. The GM's going to be getting a lot of fear, and you're going to be going back and forth. Now, one thing I will say that happens with a 2d12 system is the dice curve. The dice curve is all messed up. Let me zoom in. So if you're rolling with 2d12, you're not going to be, it's not like rolling a d20. You don't just have a 5% chance of hitting a number. It's actually pretty weighted towards the middle of the pack. So your chance of rolling between a 10 and a 17 is like 40 to 50% of your dice rolls. Whereas all the other numbers have tiny percentages of achieving it. Like rolling a 2 or rolling a 24, you have a 0.7% chance of rolling the highest number dice and a lower number, or the highest dice you can get and the lowest number you can get. So this 2d12 system tends to put people directly in the middle of what you will actually be rolling. So this does a couple things. It means that hitting a 10 is pretty easy. Hitting a 15 is deceptively difficult. And for every step above, like outside of the middle range you go, it gets progressively more difficult. So like, just for example, without any bonuses or modifiers, if you wanted to roll, well, I actually have a spreadsheet for this. One second. Did I put it on here? I don't remember. Let me check. I want to bring this up because it is important. It is important. So to roll a 15 on the dice, you have a 32% chance of rolling a 15. That doesn't sound too bad, right? But what if you need to roll a 19? Well, then you have a 10% chance of rolling that, even though, you know, it's only 5 numbers away from the maximum. So the more difficult, like every point further you push a difficulty class, it gets so much harder, like just so much harder. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people will recognize at first glance. It pushes the game towards the middle of the pack. Just something I wanted to point out. And the reason why I care about this and know so much about this is because when I was designing my own system several years ago, I built a system that used 2d10, which is, you know, functionally the same as 2d12 when it comes to number squishing. And that was actually a problem I ran into. Now, I will say, Daggerheart does take things one step further in a good direction, because whenever you're rolling and your hope dice is higher, that's a good thing. And whenever you roll the same number, so if you roll 2 of the same number, that is considered a crit and you automatically succeed. So to get around this idea of like just pushing towards mediocrity, it in general favors the player, because anytime you roll a hope dice higher, that's considered a good result, of which there's a 50-50 chance. But now any ties in numbers is a critical for you. So in general, players should succeed or get something good more often than bad. And I think it's like a 10% swing is what the numbers showed. So I like that change to what they did. Just something I wanted to bring up. Now the DM though, the DM is interesting because the DM still rolls a d20. I thought that was fascinating. I haven't done the math on like why that is yet, because I obviously haven't run the game yet. I haven't had as much time as I would like to looking into everyone's attacks and things like that. But the balance has got to be a little bit off for that to occur, and you know, maybe that's a good thing. But we'll kind of just go over some more things. It does talk about, you know, making sure that you make the game yours and all that jazz, which is good. But I'm like, here's some of that, like it's talking about how to be a good role player and things like that, which again is good. But then it launches into giving you a little bit of background information about Daggerheart, of which there are surprisingly only really 4 locations. There's the Mortal Realm, which is, you know, using D&D and Pathfinder terms, the material plane. The Hallows above, or like that's where gods are. The circles below is pretty much hell. And then the realms beyond, they're basically like, hey, you can go wherever else you want, which is cool. Like I like that they leave it open-ended. Most RPG systems do. That's not like a truly unique thing, but you know, it's nice. There are magic and spells, which is cool. This just kind of goes over some of the things that you will need to play the game. One big change in here, especially for 5th edition players, advantage and disadvantage is not rolling an extra d12 or anything like that. It's you roll. So like if a situation comes up where you roll with advantage, you still roll your duality dice, but then you also roll a d6 and you add that to your result, which does some very interesting things. Because remember, going back to our lovely dice curve chart here, what that means is, since every point can potentially be, you know, over 5 to 6% chance of like swinging this, adding a d6, which is an average of a 3.5 boost, can really turn the tides of like of what could happen. So that's interesting. And then disadvantage is you roll that same d6 and you subtract it. Just curious, you're gonna ask, since you use the same pair of dice, is it possible to use a different nat dice instead? What do you mean by that? I'm curious by that question. You mean like instead of using d12s, could you use d6s or something like that? Is that the question? If that's the question, the answer is no. The game is built to have 2 d12s. That's where all the difficulty curves are built around. What's up, Dingo? How you doing? So, that was advantage and disadvantage. Character tokens. We'll get. This is all just pretty standard shenanigans, you know, maps and minis and stuff like that. But then we get into chapter 1, which is talking about getting a session 0, which I like that it calls this out. I think that more systems should do this. It'd be like, hey, before you want to start a new campaign, talk to your players and be like, hey, what do you want this game to be? It actually doesn't go into it too much detail here, but later on, it actually gives you like a step-by-step, like, hey, here's a list of a bunch of themes. Have your players circle the one they want. Ask what they don't want to see in the game, what they do want to see in the game. Like, it's just a lot of this book is step-by-step guides to just kind of how to be a good player and be a good GM. I'm a huge fan of what it tries to do. But the first thing you do, which I think is interesting, here's where we get into actually creating a character. So step 1 is you pick a class, which is cool. And then you pick a subclass. So every class, regardless of what it is, you pick a subclass of that class. So if you're a bard, you're not just a bard, you're a play of the troubadour or play of the wordsmith, or if you're a druid, you're a warden of the elements or warden of renewal. The one I was looking at was a sorcerer, which is the primal origin or the elemental origin, and they each have their own little gimmick that they can do, and I thought that was interesting. So you pick your class, then you get to pick your heritage. These are all the different races. Each race has a unique thing that they can do. Usually it's giving advantage or disadvantage on a thing. Choosing your community is the culture your character grew up on, which again, most of these just tend to give advantage in a specific situation. Like the Loreborn, I believe if you have the ability to research something in a library, they get advantage while doing so. And I think like the Seaborn get advantage with moving through water and stuff like that. So it's there's not a whole lot that is really going on with the individual cards, but they are interesting to see. Let me actually open this up real quick. So here's the cards, which show you your abilities. I really like this concept, actually. I really like that you can have your ancestry card and it tells you everything you need to know. So unlike in a lot of systems, ancestries don't really give you bonuses to abilities. I actually didn't check if anyone did. No, they don't. Okay. None of them really give bonuses to abilities or things like that. But what they do instead is give you, like, maybe they give you an additional hit point. They give you an ability to just take some damage. You can mark stress or something to do another thing. You can get an extra move during downtime. And that's that. There's a lot of interesting stuff. By the way, the fact that the elf gets an extra downtime move is kind of that could be kind of a big deal over the course of a campaign, just saying. But they all tend to have some interesting shenanigans. Elves never tend to get stressed. Right. Welcome on in, LJL. But just these are very interesting. Can you as a GM add more options? I mean, you can always add more options. Like, that's half the fun of GMing. But this gives you some ideas of some of the stuff they're going through. And these are just some of the updated cards. There's a lot more than this. There's like, let's see, how many of them does it mention in just the GM book? It mentions 18. Looks like 18 options. So this is good. And then you choose your community. Again, your communities are basically just giving you advantage. So there's a lot of options for what you can do or add to the game here. I think it's pretty good. One thing that I thought was super fascinating actually was that in Daggerheart, they just assume that everyone speaks a certain language, and they only add in the additional language problem, like of players not being able to communicate, if you want to have it in your campaign. I think that's pretty cool. It's like I haven't been in that many games where language actually comes up enough for it to matter, you know? It just hasn't come up. It just hasn't. So I like the fact that they're like, we're not gonna bother with it. If you want to bother with it, you can make it a deal in your game, but for everyone else, you're fine. Just drinking some water. So I like that. I think that's good. Next, you have character traits. Their character traits are interesting, and all of them do things, which we'll get to that. So agility is sprint, leap, or maneuver. Strength is lift, smash, or grapple. Finesse is control, hide, or tinker. Instinct is to perceive, sense, or navigate. Presence is charm, perform, or deceive, and knowledge is recall, analyze, and comprehend. So these are just the traits. Unlike a lot of systems where you roll, this one has a static array, which I am actually okay with because it's really easy to raise these scores and you can do it relatively quickly. So instead of, I also, okay, this is a side note. I really like that they don't try and make it like, oh, you put a 12 in this score to get a +1 or a 14 to get a +2. I am so tired of that method of thinking. I am such a big fan of just put the bonus. That's all anyone really cares about. That's all you really use. No one actually references the actual number in games like D&D and Pathfinder. LGL, thank you so much for the super sticker. I appreciate it. But it just doesn't matter. So I'm a huge fan that they actually just put the numbers. Like, it's so good. It's so good. And again, it's pretty easy to modify if you really want to. I'm gonna haunt you, right? Wait, why are you gonna haunt me? What did I do? I didn't do anything yet. Next up, we've got they even recommend that they you know, if after the first couple sessions you feel like you need to swap your stats around, they recommend that you do so. I think that's cool. Now, okay, here's where we start to get into the meat of the game, because this is interesting. So evasion is essentially your armor class in this game, right? So armor class, so evasion is how hard you are to hit, and there's, you did nothing wrong. I'm fighting your Twitch. Why, thank you. I don't really stream over there anymore though, so I don't know how much you're gonna be able to haunt me over there. But so your evasion score is how hard you are to hit. You have a couple different health pools in Daggerheart. You have your actual hit points, you have armor, and you have stress. Evasion only affects your hit points. So it's how hard it is for enemies to hit you. But even if you do get hit by an enemy, you can use your armor to reduce the damage you take, which is cool. Big fan of that. I like armor not making you hard to hit. I like it making it so that you take less damage. And in fact, heavier armors actually make it easier for you to get hit. They just reduce a lot more damage, which is great. Stress is like mental damage. And it's actually a resource that you can spend a lot of to do some really cool stuff. But if you take too much stress, you become vulnerable. You take more damage when you're fully stressed out. And if you take more stress than what you're capable of, it actually starts to hit your hit points, which again, I really like. It doesn't stop you from taking more stress. It just means that you're in a bad situation and you're going to be taking more damage. And I really like this system. This is great. This is actually very similar to how Blades in the Dark handles stress. Stress is a resource that you can use to do things. Very big fan of that. Another thing that I'm not a huge fan of this. This is interesting. I'm not sure how much I like it. But the way you take damage is you have a damage threshold. So you can't ever take more than 1, 2, or 3 damage at a time. And your damage threshold, basically, like let's say, I think it was a warrior. A warrior has a minimal damage threshold of 3. If you would ever take a hit that deals less than 3 damage, you don't take any damage. But you have if you take over 3 damage, you will take 1 hit point damage. And then you have a medium threshold that's like 5 or 10 or something like that. And if you take more than 10 damage, you take 2 hit point damage. And then you have a severe threshold, and if you take more than that, then you take 3 hit point damage. Are there ways for players to reduce or negate that mental stress? yes, resting lets you remove a lot of stress. We'll get to that. So I'm not a huge fan of this damage threshold thing. I think it just needlessly complicates a lot of stuff, but it is interesting, and I would have to see it actually play out in real time to get a better idea for that. Because one of the things that you can do when you level up is increase your damage thresholds. So maybe you have a really high minimum threshold. So if things are just trying to chip away at you, you're not actually taking damage. I like that concept, but I'm not sure how it feels in practice. But we'll get to that. Now, hope and fear, we already kind of explained earlier. When you roll your duality dice, if your hope dice is higher, you get a hope that you can use to spend on abilities. But if you roll higher with your fear dice, then you are rolling with fear, which means the DM gets resources that they can use to do shenanigans and stuff like that. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. I've got a lot of thoughts about that. The next step is choosing your starting equipment. Unlike most games where it's like, hey, you get this amount of gold to do stuff with, it's just like, hey, here's your starting items, and based off of your class, you get to pick between a couple options, which is cool. Also, to answer your question, Subaru, for clearing and healing stress, there are potions that heal hit points and potions that heal stress. I thought that was kind of cool. Just a little side note. Then there's a little questionnaire that it has you go through to fill out your background. Obviously, you can just, like, this is kind of an optional step. It's purely narrative, as it says by its own words. But then an interesting thing, this I'm actually a huge fan of, is you choose your experiences. You get to pick 2 of them to start with. So your experiences are your backstory, but they matter. So some of the examples it gives is it wants you to pick a word or a phrase that kind of helps describe your characters. So, like, for instance, if you are an assassin, you can have one of your experiences be an assassin +2. Or one that's really good is I've got your back +1. And these are meant to be general. They're not supposed to be specific. But what they do is they let you flavor your character. 02, thank you so much for becoming a member. I really, really appreciate that. But they let you describe how your character is, and you'll be able to use these by spending hope. So if there's a situation where why are my alerts playing? I just noticed this. LGL, thank you so much for becoming a Bite Buddy. I appreciate it. 2 members today. Wow! Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate that a lot. I'm not really sure why my alerts aren't playing. They're on. They're just not doing anything. Maybe they're just super delayed. We'll find out. So for example, if you have hope, one of the things you can do when you roll, like as using that assassin, let's say you're trying to, someone's in a back alley and you're trying to take them out without anyone else seeing, you could use your hope to get your assassin bonus on that roll. I think that's really cool. That's really interesting. Big fan of how this turned out. And so you get 2 experiences. You'll get more throughout the game, stuff like that. Next up, we have your domain cards. Here's the main meat of what you can do in combat. Shade, huh? Oh, Shade, thank you. Or Zero, thank you for becoming. Thank you for gifting a membership. I really, really appreciate that. Congratulations, Shade. I'm really upset that my alerts aren't working, though. I don't know what's going on. Why aren't my alerts working? They're supposed to be playing a thing. But thank you. I really, really appreciate that. You're green now. How does that make you feel? You're green. You got a little book next to your name now, too. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I'm so sad my alerts aren't working. I'm gonna have to play with that around after stream to figure out why they're not working. But here's the main gimmick of your deck. You have a domain card. You have a domain deck. So when you pick a class, you pick domains, and you get to all of your abilities come from your domain decks. I don't believe you can swap out your domains. I don't remember if I read that or not. Oh, my chat broke again. Of course it did. But your domain deck is all of your abilities, all that jazz. And we'll show you some domain cards here in just a second. Because they're basically like your spells, your cool combat abilities, but you can only ever have 5 of these out at any given time. And every time you level up, you get to pick new domain cards. And eventually you have so many that you can only have 5 cards out. But that's where you can start spending stress to swap them out and stuff, which is it's a very interesting system. I'm not sure how much people will like this. This is where I was talking about where it feels a little limiting as a player, but since it is a more open-ended system, it's probably okay. Right? Like, it's probably okay. Actually, guys, do you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do something real quick. Because chat constantly breaking is kind of getting annoying. Let me see. We're gonna run the old one real quick. I was making some updates to Chaos Bot, and they're clearly not ready yet. So I'm just gonna run the old version real quick, because that one was working just fine. So we're just gonna do this real quick. We're gonna plop you in here. I'll plop you in here. Okay, now chat should stop breaking all the time. We will see. Perfect. It's a YouTube thing. No, it's not a YouTube thing. I have my own app that is trying to combine YouTube short chat with YouTube regular chat. So it's my app. I'm in the process of updating it, and it's a little broken right now. So I'm just using a previous version that was less broken for chat. 02, thank you for another gifted. Holy cow, thank you so much for the support, guys. Thank you. The threshold damage reminds me of the game World of Horror Mechanics, where Insanity's maxed your dice, so it's a race to manage your sanity before you go crazy. Oh yeah, I could see that. Thank you so much for the gifted members, and just members in general, guys. I appreciate that. Breaking things down. I come in and hear only have broken. Well, welcome on in 1 week. Yeah, no, we're breaking things down. But yeah, the domain cards are really interesting because I like that they're cards, like they're physical cards you can print off. You can look at them really, really easily, and you always in front of you know exactly what you can do. And by limiting your choices, it helps out the players who have a problem with making decisions in the moment. I think that is really good. But I do think like it limits some of the options for more advanced players. But we'll see. This is TTRPG, right? Yeah, this is Daggerheart. This is the... Okay, so for those of you who are just joining in, this is Daggerheart. This is the roleplay game made by the Critical Role crew. So that is what's going on here. 02, thank you for the gift. Are you just trying to make everyone in chat green? Like, I'm not gonna complain. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Exclamation mark D20. I should make that a command. I really should. That would be a great command. Oh, here. Okay, so the next step is you create your connections with other players. You tell everyone else, you know, what's going on with your character. You describe it, and they actually want you to, as part of your character creation, build in why your characters know each other and why they're a group, which is something that really is like, it's genuinely not talked about a lot. And this causes a lot of player problems, is when you don't have a group that should stay together, because there's always going to be, actually, you know what? I know this is going to be a clip. Hold on. A big problem with new groups of players is they're never on the same page with, you know, if someone wants to make a rogue, if someone wants to make a paladin, if someone wants to make, you know, a super evil cleric, they're just not on the same page, and that can cause problems during the game. So this is why a session 0 is so important. It helps everyone get on that same page of, okay, why is the paladin working with the rogue who's working with the evil necromancer? Maybe there's a big bad evil that they all kind of just have to work together for. You know, maybe there's this giant enemy that they really have to take down. And that's why they can work together. Because I've been in so many groups where that just has not been a thing. Also, 02, thank you for another gifted. I appreciate that. I love it that it went to chat. It's really funny. Yeah, making sure that your players sit down and discuss why they're in a group and why they're okay with each other prevents the problem from happening later of, like, when the rogue steals something, it's not like the paladin's like, oh, you can't steal in my presence. Like, no, the paladin probably knew, and they're looking the other way so that they can do X, Y, and Z. You just need to have those connections. You need to have that background to make a party cohesion function. But also, thank you so much, Zero, for the 4 gifted subs today. That's crazy. Or members. Why did I say sub? 4 gifted members. I will never, my Twitch vocabulary, I don't think I'll ever truly get rid of that. Jill, seriously, thank you. That's so helpful. You have no idea. Oh, and here's the character sheet, guys. Here is the character sheet. Look at how simple this is. Isn't this beautiful? Where are you streaming? I'm streaming on YouTube and YouTube. One stream is just the short stream. One is the YouTube stream. So I used to stream to Twitch and YouTube at the same time, but I didn't really like trying to pay attention to Twitch and YouTube at the same time. So I just stream to 2 versions of YouTube now. 02 with another gifted. That's 5 gifted memberships. Thank you so much. But also don't feel like you need to keep on gifting. I really, really appreciate it, but, you know, make sure you're taking care of yourself first. So shorts and long have different chats. They do, but I have a thing that combines both of them so I can see them easier. So that's why I can respond to both chats interchangeably. And that's also why on the full screen chat, you actually see both chats. So just in case you were wondering. But here's the character sheet, guys. Here's the character sheet. It's pretty simple. I don't know. It just looks good. It just looks good. You have your ability modifiers. You have your experiences here. Gold is measured easily. Your armor's fine. Like there's just a lot of, I don't know. It's just easy to read. Daggerheart, I wouldn't have to flip back and forth between like 5 pages. No, you would not. And in fact, okay, I'm going to show you guys the thing. I think there's 2 pages to every character sheet. So this is where all of your important information is. And then the second page is helping you, it gives you some suggested abilities. It tells you what your initial inventory is. It gives you a suggestion of like what your character description is. Here's your background questions. Here's your connections with other players. And more importantly, here's your level up guide. 0 with another gifted. Oh wait, are the alerts working now? Oh wait, no, someone just bought something. Wait, why is that alert working but the memberships aren't? Thank you to whoever just bought the Cat Records mega set. Sticker set. I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. Wait, why is the merch thing working but nothing else? What's going on? Why is it not working? Oh, my alert's not working. It's gonna drive me crazy. But thank you to whoever just bought something. I really appreciate it. Is the alert in OBS? The alert is in OBS, and I've already tried refreshing it. But I don't know what's I don't know why it's not working. It's stream. You know what? Hold on. We're gonna diagnose this real quick. Why is Stream Elements not working? Apparently Stream Elements just been kind of not working recently. Yeah. I think it's just broken. I don't know why it's broken. That day. It shows that I'm live. Hey, what's up, Razzie? The system is being biased. Yeah, pretty much. Oh, okay. We're gonna try one thing. Streaming tools, overlays. What's up, Dark Wolf? How you doing? Are my alerts just off? Hold on. Let's try another member event. Hold on. No, it works. Why is it not? What is going on? I don't know what's going on with my alerts. I actually don't know. Whatever. I'll try and fix it, I guess, for later. But I don't know why. I feel so bad because so many memberships were given and it's not playing any of them. Oh, it's so sad. I did just reset it and then recopy it, so maybe that'll fix it. I tried refreshing it. I did. That's exactly what I just did. I don't know. But why did the merch alert work? I don't understand. It's biased. It's like, oh, someone bought merch. I guess I better alert them about this. And I'm like, okay, but what about the memberships? Why don't you alert me to the memberships? Oh well. It is what it is, I guess. Yeah, no, the member alert's set up correctly. I don't know. I guess we'll just have to keep trucking on. But so here's how you level up in Daggerheart. You ready for this, guys? You have the backup Streamlabs? I don't have backup Streamlabs. I haven't used Streamlabs in a long time. I'm working on my own code to just do it, but yeah. So here's all you need to level up, guys. So at level 2, you get to add 1 additional experience. You add a new thing. And then every time you level up, you mark off 2 boxes from here. And do what it says. You know, you add 1 to your evasion score. You can increase 2 of your characteristics. You can increase your major threshold, your minor threshold. You can add hit points. You can add stress. Like, easy. And then when you hit level 5, you do another thing. So all the stuff, you can start multi-classing and things like that. So it's leveling up is super easy. I am such a big fan of this. I really like systems that are really easy to level up, because that way you don't have to reference this big chart. It's just like, oh, you're level 4. Okay, you get the level 2 box. You get to mark off 6 of these other abilities and add them to your character sheet, and then you're good. that's it. Like it's really that easy. It's cool. And that's the whole character sheet. That's it. And then domains lets you do cool stuff. You gotta go though. Oh, well, thanks for dropping by, Dark Wolf. I really appreciate you dropping by. So domains just kind of let you do, like, these are your abilities. This is your bread and butter. So obviously if you want to play a sorcerer, you're going to pick things like Arcana or Midnight or maybe Sage or things like that. 02 with another gifted. Okay, Stream Elements, you better play it this time. I'm going to be real upset if you don't play it. Stream Elements. Buddy. It's not. Why can't it detect members? I'm so sad. It didn't work. Thank you so much for the gifted, though. I really appreciate it, Zero. Yeah, it's VTuber scuff. I know. I know. Oh, here's the domain cards. Okay, you guys ready to see the domain cards? So you get to see what level the domain is. That's the top left. The recall cost. This will come into effect when you're swapping things out. And then you get to see what type it is and what it does. So in this case, your domain ability is when you are targeted by an attack coming from beyond melee range, mark as stress to roll a d4 and increase your evasion against this attack by its value, which is really, really cool. Big fan, big fan. And so these are just cards you'll have out in front of you, and some of them you can use whenever you want. Others can only be used in certain situations. Surely this will work. No, 02, don't stop gifting. If you want to see the alert, it's not going to work. I don't know what's happening. I don't know why it's not working. But the gifted alert's not working. You know what? I can forcibly play here. I'll play it myself. Alert, member alert. Here, I can forcibly play it. There we go. I'll force it to play. Oh, thank you so much for the members, though. I really, really appreciate it. That's 8 members today. Jeez. Congratulations to Pokemaster for the membership. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. But here's the domains. You'll have a bunch of these. You'll see all the stuff you can do. You can have up to 5 of these out at any given time. And you can swap them by spending stress to recall abilities and use new ones. It's really interesting, really cool. The silver lining from all this is that you got direct things from Layerless back to back. I mean, I guess that's true. That is true. And then now here's where we started to get into some of the interesting decisions that I'm not super happy with. So spellcaster trait. If you want to be a spellcaster and you have a domain that gives you the spellcaster trait, you use the domain that it says. Like here's the bard subclass. Spellcaster trait is presence. So if you want to be casting spells, you have to use your presence trait. I think these are just all the different classes. We're not going to go over each and every individual one. But druids get beast form. That's just kind of cool. And each class might have a different spellcasting trait. So the ranger spellcasting trait is agility. So it's not just mental traits. Like you can spellcast with physical abilities, which I think is genuinely pretty cool. It really lets you build the character the way that you want to, and it's not... Basically, there's no downside to being an agility-based ranger if you still have some spellcasting ability. That's cool. because it basically means that if you do pick up like an arcane domain, well, you can cast with it, which is cool. Here's some more character sheets. Oh, the companion character sheet is also really cool. Big fan. It levels up with you. Really cool stuff. There's just a rogue, seraph, which are like divine fighters. They're kind of like the clerics. Sorcerer, wizard. You know, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. So a lot of good options. And here are your ancestries. So here's an example of what the ancestries do. Like Clank is kind of like a robot dude. Decide who you were created by and for what purpose. Choose an experience that you have that reflects this and increase it by 1. So a magic swordsman is possible in this game? Yeah, it is. So this ancestry increases like, so for most classes, they get their experience +2 and +1. This one gets potentially a +3 and a +1 or 2 +2s, which is interesting. And then when you, dude, the ancestry abilities are kind of busted. When this guy, so when you take a short rest, you can instead do one of the long rest actions, which is super interesting because there's a difference between long rests and short rests and what you can do. And I think that's really cool. Daemons are, I mean, they're demons pretty much. When you roll a fear, you can mark 2 stress to make it a roll with hope instead, so they can change what you're rolling. And then they have advantage on intimidates. Dracona have, you know, heavy armor. They have breath weapons. Lots of really cool stuff, you know. Elves, we already kind of went over. Fairies are cool. They can fly. Also, I apologize for the construction outside my window. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not. It's relatively loud. And there's not much I can really do about it. So hopefully you guys can't hear that too much. Wait, how loud is that? Holy crap, that's loud. I'm really happy my microphone has a lot of good audio dampening. Actually, hold on. I'm gonna try something real quick. One second. They're literally right outside my window. There's nothing I can do about this. Hopefully you guys can't hear them. Oh, it's bad. Can you guys hear them? Can you guys hear them? Like, is it actually bad, or am I just in my own head about how loud it is? Can you guys really not hear them? That's wild to me. Like, that's crazy. Okay, maybe my soundproofing setup is better than I thought it was, because I hear them like clear as day just outside my window. It's crazy. I'm gonna take that as a win, though. I'm gonna take that as a win. Let's see here. Okay, moving on. We'll just kind of deal with this. There's a bunch of different ancestries, just really cool stuff. But the thing I want to get to, which I think is the thing that most people here are going to be interested in. Oh, you can also mix ancestries if you want. I think that's cool. But now we get into communities. So communities, again, these things just tend to give you advantage on something. Like Loreborn, you have advantage rolls regarding history, culture, or politics of a prominent person or place. Orderborn. You once per short rest, when you describe how you're embodying one of the principles through your current action, you can roll a d20 as your hope die instead of a d12. So you basically just get hope for free, which is, you know, cool. I'm not going to go over too many of the communities. They're just kind of fun backstory shenanigans. Yeah, not a whole lot of art yet. I also love that the playing blind, deaf, or mute characters, the section is in progress. Just thought that was interesting. Or physically disabled characters. the combat wheelchair, I admit, I gotta see this. I gotta see this. Are the construction workers going to be okay seeing a talking cat streaming live on YouTube? Maybe. Let's see. Playing an adventure. Flow of the game. This goes over standard, you know, how you run a session. It's not anything crazy. We already talked about the core mechanics. However, the turns. Here's the interesting part. Here's the thing I think a lot of people are really going to struggle to get with their first time playing Daggerheart, because it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. Actions. The game doesn't have turns in a traditional sense. Basically, when the players do something that requires an action, the GM gets an action token, which he can then use to activate his minions and bosses and stuff. So it's very interesting, because basically the GM only gets as many turns as the players get, so it's this back and forth going on. I think that's super interesting. And again, the players are rolling duality dice, so they're 2d12, and the GM is rolling a d20, which is fascinating, because the GM rolls are going to be all over the place. The player rolls are just going to be using their 2d12s. One thing I really like about combat is there's a lot of really cool ways to help allies in this system, or to take group actions or teamwork actions. So like you and a buddy can both spend some of your hope and use that to do a really cool thing, but it only counts as one action, so the GM only gets one token. That's really cool. You're basically expected to be spending hope all the time on things, because you get it back so fast and you can only ever hold 6. But whenever the GM gets fear, he can use that to bring in more enemies. Some enemies, or even the environments, have stuff that can only activate when the GM has fear tokens. Because fear tokens are supposed to be like really big, really impactful and nasty kind of effects that will trigger only when they have fear tokens. And the thing about fear tokens is they don't really go away. You can stockpile them and use them at a later date, which I don't know if I'm a huge fan of, but it's definitely interesting. And in fact, it actually recommends that the GM doesn't stockpile them and just use them as much, like pretty often, so that way you don't make one encounter really easy, but the next one like almost impossible. Very interesting. We already talked about evasion score. We talked about hit and damage thresholds. This is just an example. Most characters only start with 6 hit points. But since you're only taking 1, 2, or 3 at a time, it's not a huge deal. Stress is kind of like your mental hit points. Cool. Action rolls. So whenever you want to do something, you pick a trait, you add any extra dice or modifiers, of which like domains can add modifiers, advantage can be modifiers. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can add or take away to make it work. And then you roll the dice. The DM tells you what the DC is, and you tell him whether or not you got the result with fear or with hope, and you go about it. Hey, what's up, Opie? What's happening? We're talking about the role-playing system Daggerheart, made by the Critical Role people. I read through it this week, and I'm just kind of giving my thoughts as we go down it. So that's the basics of rolling. Here it gives some example with critical successes, a success with hope, a success with fear, failure with hope, or failure with fear. This is the part that I'm not a huge fan of, if I'm being perfectly honest, because this having to keep track of every time a good or a bad thing happens with every time on every roll just sounds exhausting. Am I alone in that? Like that, it just sounds exhausting from a GM perspective to keep track of all this stuff. Like no individual roll is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, but it's keeping track of everything over time is what's going to do you in. So, yeah. It gives you some examples of failure with fear, failure with hope, success with fear, success with hope. That's pretty standard. Spell casting rolls are a little confusing because whenever to do your spells and stuff, you generally have to make a spell cast roll where you use your trait, whatever trait it was, like we talked about earlier, and whatever numbers in the parentheses, you have to pass that number and able to do the thing. And some of the spell casting stuff seems like it's actually kind of difficult to do. So it's interesting. I don't know. Here's where it explains group actions. So you can have everyone try, and this was a big thing in Blades in the Dark as well, where you can take an action as a group and base the success off of the person who rolls the dice. So like this example, it gives a ranger trying to escape down a stronghold. And so instead of everyone individually rolling, they choose the ranger to be the group leader, and everyone still rolls, but the only dice that really matters is the ranger. And if you would have passed the roll on your own, you add to the ranger's roll. So basically you're supporting or detracting from the primary on a roll. And it's a little difficult to explain without like seeing it in action, but it's super helpful and useful because it means that characters who are really bad at stealth, they might not fail at stealth because someone else is really good at it. I like that a lot. It's basically encouraging people to do teamwork actions. It's really cool. Are we going to play the game, or did I misunderstand what we're doing again? We're just talking about the system right now, Opie. We're not actually playing this. I'm just explaining, because I read through it this week. I just explained it. Talking about like why you may or may not like the system in general. Tag team rolls are really cool. So tag team rolls, and you can only do this once per session, but you can spend 3 hope to do a really awesome, cool action with someone else. That's really cool. Yeah, I don't know. It's really cool. Damage rolls here. Okay, here, this is probably the part of the system that I like the least. Is you roll damage and then you compare it against someone's threshold, and that's how much actual HP damage they take. So like each weapon uses different stats. They do different damage, and the number of dice you roll goes up with your proficiency in a weapon. Maybe I'm just weird, but I'm not a huge fan of like, if I'm rolling 3d12 plus 18 damage against a target, like, you know, let's say I roll 50 and that is translated into 3 hit point damage. It's just, it kind of feels like, why are we doing these weird conversions? I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. I'm not a huge fan of it. I'd have to actually play with this and see what it feels like to really get a good feel for how I like or dislike this system, you know? So who knows? Critical successes are really cool. They just add more damage, so you're likely to hit the enemy harder. You know, good stuff. There's magic damage, there's physical damage, there's direct damage, where they direct damage, they automatically hit. One thing I will say that is nice about the damage is no matter how much damage you hit an enemy for, they will always take at least 1 hit point. Unless it's like a special monster that has special armor. But in general, even if you just hit something, they will always take 1 hit point damage. Because most enemies have a minimum threshold of 1. But players can have a minimum threshold of a lot. So players aren't always taking damage, but enemies are. Just a small little thing. I like it. So a hit is never just negated. I'm a big fan of that. And here it just talks about resistance or immunity. Where it just halves or they're just straight up immune. Reaction rolls are kind of like reactions in most other games. You can only make them when stuff happens. The thing about reaction rolls in Daggerheart, though, is they don't trigger the hope and fear dice. So if something makes you make a reaction roll, you still roll the 2d12, but it doesn't matter which one rolls higher. It's just a roll. I like that because that means that you can't force more hope or fear based off of reactions. So that's cool. We already talked about advantage and disadvantage. We talked about domain cards. We talked about swapping cards. Some cards have usage limits, some don't. Conditions. Here's some interesting conditions. So vulnerable means that if you are vulnerable or someone else is vulnerable, whenever you attack them, you get advantage on that attack, which is cool. And bad. And when you're fully stressed out, by the way, you're considered vulnerable. So you're probably gonna go down real fast if you're vulnerable. These are just some more of the conditions. Countdowns is a big thing for this game. I hadn't thought about this, but this is a very interesting mechanic. So countdowns basically mean after X amount of actions, this thing happens. So like for an environment, it could have, like, let's say you're fighting in a volcano, right? It could have a countdown of 20 that's a loop. And what that means is every 20 actions, its effect will trigger. So in this case, like, let's say some lava spews and people need to make reaction rolls to not take a little bit of damage, right? And that is entirely based off of what people are doing. So if the players keep on taking actions, that number is continually going down. And then once it triggers, it could loop again if it's an environment that is a constant thing. Or it could be a spell that puts a countdown on someone that, you know, basically after 5 actions, it'll trigger and pop and do whatever its ability is. That's a really unique concept. This also works for downtime stuff. Like if you are building something, the GM might assign a countdown of 12, and whenever you use one of your downtime actions to work on your project, you can decrease that countdown number by up to 4, right? Very interesting. I'm kind of a big fan of that. Range and movement are a little bit more loose, but you can make them rigid if you want. If you want to fight on a battle map, you can. The game absolutely facilitates doing so. But if you want to use the more abstract, like, oh, you're in melee range, oh, you're very close, you're far, you're very far. You know, it's got a lot of abstract concepts. It tends to lean into a little bit more of the theater of the mind aspect than anything else. So, you know, it's not good or bad. It's just a thing. Range is the same kind of a thing. It tends to be a little bit more abstract. Cover and stuff provides disadvantage or advantage depending on what you're doing. I really like how they simplified gold. Gold is just handfuls, bags, or chests. So 10 handfuls of gold is a bag of gold. 10 bags of gold is a chest full of gold. And that's its currency. It doesn't try to be anything crazier. I'm a big fan of that. It knows what it is. It doesn't try to get fancy. It just does what it is. I'm so over game systems trying to be really fancy and make up their own, like, really unique and working economies. It never works out. I'm sorry, but a team full of game designers is just never going to fully be able to make a functional economy that makes sense all the time. Just go more abstract. It's more fun and everyone just kind of gets it, you know? Though I do think that it's funny they added the optional rule of like, yeah, you can do gold coin. You can make a coin system if you want. Oh, okay. Here's what some people were talking about. Here's the downtime system. So when you have downtime, you get to choose between some actions to do. So there's short rests, which are like an hour-long mini break. The short rests are like how they are in D&D. And then long rests are like, you know, you're going to relax for a few hours, get some sleep, and do some stuff like that. And every time you take one of these actions as a group, you get to do 2 things from this list. So you can tend to wounds, you can patch yourself up, heal yourself, you can clear stress, you can repair armor, or you can prepare for yourself and prepare for the path ahead and gain hope. So if you're taking a short rest, it's just like, you know, you just heal yourself up a little bit. It's great. If you're using a long rest, you can just straight up heal all your wounds, heal all your armor, heal all your stress, gain a bunch of hope, or work on a project. Very simple, very easy. Now, I do think it's funny that some of the races that let you use a long rest action as a short rest action basically means that, oh, you can just clear all your stress. Interesting. Have you ever played Desert Shop Rose Bakery? I have not. I've never even heard of that, actually. But so that's interesting. And here's how it just describes how you do working on a project in downtime. And here is, okay, this has my favorite death system of any game I've ever played in. When you die or would die, you get to choose from 3 options. And I love this so much. You can, so if you lose your last hit point, you can decide to either go out in a blaze of glory. You can take 1 action and it will critically succeed. And then you die. I love that so much. That's so good. You can avoid death, where you just kind of go unconscious. You roll your hope die. If your hope die is less than your current level, you gain a scar, which means you permanently lose one of your reservoirs of hope. So you start with 6. If you get a scar, that means your maximum is now 5, which is interesting. But you're basically guaranteed to have, you know, you're not going to die. And then the last one is risk it all. You roll your duality dice, and if your hope is higher, your hope dice is higher, you get back up on your feet, you get some of your hit points and stress back, and you're good to go. But if your fear die is higher, you just die. And if you crit, you get everything back, which is hilarious. Hey, what's up, Cinderman? How you doing? So, very interesting. Does the group have to consent with choosing the same downtime action, or each player can choose their own? Each player gets to choose their own, Subaru. So that's really nice, is everyone gets to choose their own actions. And a lot of the actions that you can choose during downtime, you can choose to do on an ally instead, or with an ally. It's like if you and another ally decide to prepare together, you each get 2 hope instead of 1. I like that because it encourages doing stuff together as a group. So just a lot of good stuff there. You can resurrect. That's a thing. Here's the action tracker. This is what we were talking about. Whenever players take an action, the GM gets to put a token on the action tracker, and they can use that to activate enemies, to do abilities, to do effects. So it's very back and forth. Here's where it just describes how combat works. You can use turn-based initiative if you're more familiar with that. That's fine. A bunch of general rules. There's not a whole lot here that we need to talk about. Just again, it talks a little bit about leveling up. Choosing. Here's where you choose your adventure and choosing your advancements when you level up. Here's where it talks about multi-classing. I didn't read too much into that yet, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. I'll just give some examples, give some examples of equipment. Just some more general rules. Here's where it talks about armor and weapons and stuff. So like heavy armor reduces your evasion score, so you're easier to hit. But you have a higher base score for your armor, so you can reduce more damage. Here's just a bunch of the weapons. You can see that they all have traits with them, and some of them have abilities that go with them. So like a broadsword uses agility, a greatsword uses strength, dagger uses finesse, and then there's a lot of cool magic weapons that can also use strength, agility, instinct, finesse, like all the different weapons, and they all have their ranges, they all have how much damage they do. It's pretty cool. Now, the thing I'm not a huge fan of is the different tiers of weaponry. So you start with a tier 0 weapon and armor, and then as you level up, you can get new tiers of weapons. And I get that it's just a way to scale the game, but it's... I don't know. I don't know if I like it. I don't know if I like the fact that there's different tiers of weaponry based off of what level you are in the game. Like, to me, it's kind of like just buying new magic armor in Pathfinder and stuff. Like, you could just do it. But, I mean, I guess it makes sense. I don't really have a problem with this. It's just something I'm personally not a huge fan of. But it's also just native to role-playing games, and I don't have a better option or solution for it. So, you know, what are you going to do? But I do like that most weapons, well, not most, I'd say about half weapons, have like a cool, fun little gimmick that they do. And just, I don't know, it's good. Here's where we talk about all the armor. Some of the armor gets actually insane. Like, Savior Chainmail has a base score of 15, but you lose 1 to all of your character traits. It's crazy. Oh, here's and it has fun loot tables. Here's just a bunch of, most of these do like the clear stress, so they give you a +1 to something. There's not a lot of like long-term like attribute changing things, and if they are, you can only have one of them. Like the Attune Relic gives a +1 to your instinct. You can't hold any other relics, you know, stuff like that. Just cool stuff. It gives you a full example of play, which is good. I read through it, and it's pretty I don't know, it's just good. Let's see, anything else that's crazy on here? Running adventure. Here's where it just talks about, you know, very nondescript GM principles. Pretty basic stuff for running games, but I like that it spells it out, and it, you know, it really does try and teach you how to play RPGs with a group well. And I think there's not a lot of now granted, like I said, I haven't read many player handbooks recently, but it's nice that it at least, you know, that it at least tries to do it. And that's pretty good. Let me show you. I forget if there's a couple more things I think I want to show you. Oh, it tells you some pitfalls to avoid. I do think it's funny that it kind of explicitly calls out GMs that are trying to stockpile resources to punish their players with later. I thought that was really funny. It's like, hey, just don't do this. I thought it was funny. Yeah. Let's see here. Just some more stuff. Tells you more about the GM mechanics. Like the GM rolls a d20, which is interesting. I don't think the GM actually can crit. Oh no, the GM can crit. So the GM only crits on a 20. I didn't notice that the first time. So they're going to crit a lot less often than players will, which I also like, because I feel like one of the things that sucks from a player perspective, like that really, really sucks, is when you get crit by a boss. And fortunately in this, I don't think you can just straight up die. There is an optional rule to add even more damage on, which I doubt very many people will use, but it is there. This just gives you some more jamming stuff. this is where I'm not as big of a fan of this system, because a lot of this is quite literally adding on to what you already have to do as a GM. Not a real big fan. Like, because when they succeed with fear, this happens. When they succeed with yada yada, another thing happens. Like, there's a lot of tiny decisions that the GM has to be making all the time and keeping track of what exactly is happening to make it so that it's you know, working correctly. I don't know. It's you know. So the GMing side of things, I'm not super into. I'm just gonna keep it so real. I think this game is more fun as a player than it is as a GM, because there's so many little things that the GM has to keep track of and to use correctly, and it can really sour the player's experience. It just feels like there's a lot on the GM's plate already, you know? So it's something I would play in. I don't know if I want to GM it. Now, that being said, I do kind of want to GM it just to see how it feels. Here we're talking about some more of the countdown stuff. I just want to show you some of the enemies. Are there any campaigns to go along with this? There are. There's one low-level campaign that they give you to test it out. So you can do that. Where are the stat blocks for enemies? This is one thing I will say is a huge benefit for the DM. Okay, so here's the stat blocks for enemies. Can the GM have a co-host? I mean, like, yeah, you could always have a co-host. But here's stat blocks for enemies. I like how small these are. These are great. Like, look how tiny this is. It's super easy. It shows what difficulty they are. It shows their attack modifier. It shows how much damage they do, how many hit points they have, their abilities. Like, it's pretty simple stuff. Shows their tier. And so what difficulty is in this isn't I believe that's their evasion score. I think. Yeah. It shows their tier, because the tier is what level people are supposed to be fighting them at. There's a lot of tier 0 stuff. Gives you their type, gives you some cool shenanigans and things like that. Overall, like, there's a lot of good stuff here. Again, I really like that the stat blocks are just so tiny, because it's just like, I really do get tired of running games for big, bulky critters with giant stat blocks. There's just so much stuff to do. But if it's this small, GM workload is reduced a little bit. Now, that's not to say that everything doesn't have a bunch of stuff. Oh, so like, here's one thing. So the juvenile flicker flight, this is a fear action. So you can only use this if you have a fear and stuff like that. And like, I really like that environments can have fear and stuff, because that gives you just one more level of stuff that you can do. It really will enhance like the ambiance, because I like it when the actual environment is dangerous. I think that's a really cool thing. And this game seems to take that into account, and hopefully, you know, they hopefully they continue to develop it. That's pretty much it for Daggerheart, I think. That's a pretty in-depth walkthrough. Let me just show you some of the cool. There's a lot of printable material that I think you guys would be interested in. Like, there's a lot. And gosh, where is it? Imagine using fear as a limit break. I mean, that's kind of what happens. So let me show you some of the GM materials. Because one thing I will say is the fact that everything's printable looks super nice. So like all of your abilities, all of your character sheets, all this stuff. I really want to show you the does it have the, wait, where's the character? Oh, it's under player materials. Okay. So here's a example character sheet. I want to show you, this is single-handedly the coolest thing I've seen with a character sheet, I think literally ever. I love it so much. Okay, so this is the sorcerer class. It walks you through how to create a class. So here's the sheet, and then look at this. This is a sheet that you can print off. You're supposed to rip it in half, and then when you hold it up next to your character sheet, it has little arrows that point to everything and explain what they do. This is such a cool thing. Because when you're not using it, you can just put it behind your character sheet. And if you're confused, you just, you know, slide it out, read it, and put it back. Fantastic design. So good. If I make a system, which I'm planning on, I am absolutely yoinking this idea. This is so fantastic. Then it shows all the equipment you might want, your action guide, what you can do in a downtime. Here's all of the ancestry cards. Here's all the spell cards. Here's just like, it's just so good. It's so good. I'm a big fan. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think of what do you think? I've been talking about it for about 2 hours now, and I'm really curious if you guys enjoy what's going on here, or yeah. What do you think? What do y'all think? I'm curious. If I had to give this system a rating so far without having played it, I'd probably give it a solid like 7 or 8 out of 10. There's a lot of stuff I like. There's some cool things that it works with. But there's also a lot that, you know, I feel like you probably need to fix for the GM. I feel like this is going to be a really good system for story-based role players. I do feel like they're going to get the biggest bang for their buck out of playing Daggerheart, which I think is what it's built for. And that is not a issue, to be very clear. The fact that they know their target audience and they're hitting them, that is a good thing. I just don't think it wouldn't be my first choice in game. That being said, I do want to run it and see kind of what it feels like. Because I think there's a lot of cool stuff going on, but I don't think I would run it for a long term. I like listening to you talk. You have a calming voice. Why, thank you. I don't know what to say past thank you. But thank you. Yeah, that's Daggerheart. It's just kind of good. Like I said, definitely better than a lot of the games I've seen. Like, definitely better. But with plenty of stuff to improve on, you know? So, if you like it, cool, check it out. It's available for free. You can just Google in Daggerheart, and you'll bring up a bunch of stuff. And it's all for free. It's all part of the public beta, and they want you to do stuff. Who's going to be your victim, or I mean your friend of choice to play this game? I don't know. But that's just kind of where we're at for right now. Yeah. Oh, and now that I have brain dumped on you, I can feel my brain shutting down. Cause like, oh, we went through everything. Actually, is there anything else on my list I want to talk about? Planes of Existence was cool. Number is needed. Da 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 da. Tag team's really good. Yeah, no, we pretty much talked about everything. I wrote down 2 pages of notes when I was going over stuff yesterday, and yeah, I'm pretty much caught up. So, cool beans, cool beans. I don't know who I'm gonna run with. I don't know if I will run it with someone. I think it'll be interesting. If you're done with this, you want to try my favorite game? Sure, go ahead and tell me what the game is. We're gonna wrap up stream here though, because this is what the stream was today. But I might take a look at it on a future stream. Next week we're talking about D&D 5th edition, which I think is the game that most people are familiar with. I'm actually not as familiar with it, so I'm gonna have to reread how to play 5th edition. And I know they just came out with like the new classes and stuff of 2024, so that'll be interesting to say the least to talk about. But that's the plan. Is next week is D&D 5th edition. The week after that is going to be Pathfinder 2nd edition, which is the game that I have the second most experience with. And then probably after that, we're going to have Blades in the Dark. Did you mention the table size of the game? Accommodate? The table size is 2 to 5, which I believe means it's counting the GM. So it is best experienced with 4 players, is what it seems to be recommending. Actually, let's go look at that. 2 to 5. 2 to 5 player characters. Okay, so 2 to 5 player characters. That is a recommendation. 1 D&D review win. What is 1 D&D? I don't even know what that is. 1 D&D. Is that the new one? Is that the 2024? What is it? What is 1 D&D? I don't know what this is. It's called Desert Shop Rose Big. I'll give it a look. Opie. Interesting. All right, well, I'll add it to the list of stuff to look at. It's a long list, but you know, we'll add it to the stuff. But we're gonna go ahead and call it there, guys. Thank you once again so much for all of the gifted memberships today. It was so unexpected and so, like, I'm so thankful for that. I'm gonna look into why my alerts stopped working. It's really kind of annoying that they stopped working. But join the Discord. We have fun. Members, I'll see you tomorrow. I guess there's a bunch of new members to see tomorrow. So members, I'll see you tomorrow. And then we'll be back next week for D&D and, you know, our usual yapping streams in the middle of the week and stuff. But yeah, thanks for hanging out, guys. I will see you all later, and I hope you have a good and wonderful day. And someone told me that I need to start ending my streams like this again. So wherever you are in the world, I hope you have a good morning, afternoon, or evening. But for now, class is dismissed. I will see you all later. Bye. What happened to my... How long have I been looking weird? Apparently a while.